Rock Talk. Rock Talk.
Welcome back to GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, live streaming every Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., anywhere and everywhere you may be. I'd like to remind you that you can also listen to this and past programs on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and something else.
iTunes?
iTunes, thank you. So many now, I'm beginning to lose track of them all. But please check out cnht.org. Please visit granitegrok.com to see what we do and help us out. Throw us a couple of digital coins from your couch cushions and help us keep this program and CNHT's offices and everything that they do here at Grassroots. Thank Tucker for coming on the program. You can call in, and we don't expect you to, but the number is 603-715-9689. We don't have the flasher yet, which I joked earlier was a German language professor from UNH. But you can call us.
Can we wire his parts up to 50 volts and make him jump?
Yeah, that would probably work, too. We got enough wires here. 603-715-9689. We're moving on to our next session. Karen Testerman's with us. She is the founder of Cornerstone Policy Research. There's a long list of credits that I could give you, but we'll just tell you that she's a primary candidate in a Republican race to challenge whom I called Jean I Heart Debo Adbegail Shaheen earlier. And she's joining us today. Karen, how you doing?
I'm doing well,
Great.
Steve.
Good to have you here.
Nice to see you, Skip.
Howdy.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, Karen.
Good.
How
good.
goes the campaign trail?
Well,
How goes the battle against the statist candidates?
the statist candidate.
You don't have to answer that specifically. You can just talk about
Well,
your campaign.
since I'm the only one that is not a career politician, I kind of like that, you know.
After all, as I keep saying, and this is the caveat, we love saying the stuff that other people only wish they could say.
That's right. That's what we're here for.
Quite honestly, it's time that we got rid of those, the liars in Washington, D.C., but also, as we say, it's the bullies and referencing them all the time and making laws and all these restrictions on the bullies in the schools, and yet we've been bullied around by the administration far too long, and Jean Shaheen is one of the major ones that's doing it. So I think we have to replace her.
What about the establishment bullies?
Well, yeah. Yeah, we already had that rant. We already had that, and we'll have it again. But, and I think you're right. She is a bully. And my favorite example of the bullying is that not only did she want to control the health care in New Hampshire with SB 711, which basically put in, let's say, community rating and what was the other thing? Board
of Need, was that already there?
No, it had to do with the insurance.
Right.
There was two things, the community rating and the acceptance, I think, where you had to take all comers, which basically destroyed the marketplace because everybody left, because you could no longer actually price for real risk, which is the whole reason of insurance.
From 12 to 3 providers or something like that.
2.
12 to 2.
Almost 1.5. And now with Obamacare, which she was a prime mover of and shaper of that, we're down to 1. So good deal for choice.
Oh, and now if you like the latest is if you like your health care provider, you can pay more and still get them.
Yes. Well, not only that, but here she get about the state be mere vassals instead of the way it was, where it was the states that created the federal government in the first place. Because remember back a couple of years when the New Hampshire Executive Committee voted against funding Planned Parenthood of New England, she decided to take federal money, swoop in, and override the decisions of the lawfully elected New Hampshire politicians. Yes, they were all Republicans at the time, but still lawfully elected, and basically said, I don't care a crap about what you guys have actually voted on. I disagree, and from my lofty position, I'm going to make the federal government override your decision. And to me, that is a breaking of a pledge to faithfully follow the Constitution. I mean, was it 2 years
You
ago?
mean the oath is supposed to mean something?
Yeah, and people like Jack Kimball and a few other people, John Heichel, got in a lot of trouble for promoting, we ought to get rid of those that aren't honoring their oaths. Well, you know
absolutely.
something?
Absolutely.
When you can't keep your word, what good are you? How trustworthy are you? And I think that's something that has, I've known you for a long time now, and that's certainly something that is near and dear to your heart.
Absolutely. I mean, my position has always been that if you go out and talk to the people in New Hampshire and you tell them who you are and whether they agree with you on all of the issues, nobody's going to agree with you on all the issues. If you tell them who you are and what you are and you maintain that honesty with them and you don't change who you are and you still go by what you said you were going to do, the people of New Hampshire will vote for you.
So you reached out to us to come and talk, and is there anything in particular you want to focus on?
Oh, we've got lots of stuff to focus on.
Why don't you take over so nobody else jumps in?
We've got a U.S. Senate race that's going on, and we've got a new person who has just jumped in, a former senator, 2-time senator, 3 times congressman, Bob Smith.
How many people are in this race now?
There's 3 of us in.
3. Okay.
Three and a half, right?
3.5. Yeah, there's all those rumors about Scott Brown, Right. And I really think Scott Brown should get in because Jean Shaheen needs to have a primary, and just like he relocated to New Hampshire, he can now become a Democrat and change his party.
Actually, that would be awesome.
You mean just like the Democrat
awesome.
in Chuck Morse's district needs a primary?
Oh, come on. I'm sorry. I'm not going to change the direction. You please proceed. We've talked too much already.
Oh,
Anyway.
no. I understand you've been having a good time
we'll
this
make
morning.
you an honorary Grokster for a comment like that.
Well, the reality is we've got a real problem in this state with a woman who is voting 100% almost. I back off on that. 99. So it's not Obamacare, it's Shaheen care.
Well,
Really,
she was the 60th vote.
Yeah. Well, you can say she was amongst the 60 that did vote. She wasn't the last vote there, but because they go down, I think they go down alphabetically, don't they?
Right, but I'll put it like this, Karen. If you have misgivings and they can barely get 60 votes, you can either go with the ideology and follow the party line, or you can vote your misgivings and vote against.
Whoever said she had misgivings? Did she ever state she did?
I heart Debo Adigbile. There you go. Adigbile. I hate that name. It's terrible.
You need to explain who that is.
Adigbile.
Adigbile? Is that how you pronounce it?
And Bile's a good name
I like
for his
Bile
name.
better because this is a guy who went out of his way to defend a cop killer. Who killed a cop in Philadelphia, and he was up for a position at the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, and it did not get through the Senate because a bunch of Democrats voted against it because they had problems with this guy. Now, I wrote down, I said, there's a lot of people you could pick for this position. I'm sure there's thousands of totally qualified people. Obama picks a guy who's associated with a cop killer. A bunch of Democrats voted against it.
Didn't just defend the cop killer, advocated for him publicly and held rallies indicating that he was, to all
did what Harry Reid and Barack Obama told her to do.
Which
She always does.
Which means she is worthless as an ambassador of New Hampshire.
Her and the Lennon twins there, Shea Porter and Custer, they are the Democrat Party's representatives from the federal government to New Hampshire, not the other way around.
Exactly.
Steve, that is wonderful. We have to Photoshop that. I need statues of those people so we can push them over.
I don't know. Yeah, I've been saying that for years. Before they got kicked out, before Shea Porter got kicked out, I've always said that. Any Democrat you elect to office, even in the state house, with a very few exceptions, They are there to vote the party line. That's the only reason they're there. And if they don't, the Democrats run them out. Quietly. They do it quietly, unlike what we do, which is ugly and messy. But
Well, on the other hand, the Republican Party doesn't seem to have a whip to all intents and purposes, and they never use it to actually hold to the platform.
Well, that's because there's too many of them down there beating up on the ones that want to hold to our Constitution and that really take the oath seriously and take the document that is supposed to be running our country seriously. And instead, we want to go. Well, look at what they're doing to Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, and Tim Scott.
I was actually going to go there. So Rand Paul stood up, and Steve played a bit of a speech, and he stood up and he advocated for the Rand Paul party without a advocated a conservative vision of the Republican Party and basically said, you can't pay attention to these old, worn-out, Washington-based leaders. You've got to stick to principles. And you know, he basically got back at the establishment, good style. Anyway, back to you. You are not the establishment. You are conservative. Go on, keep telling us why it's you that we should be sending to Washington.
Oh, why? Because I'm the only one that's going to fight for the people in New Hampshire. Because I don't, you know, throw the money at me, throw the power at me. It doesn't matter to me. I've been there, done that, been down the road of fighting with bullies before in my life, and I certainly can stand up to them this time. So that's the primary reason. And you know what? Ted Cruz said something the other day too when he was in front of Hagel, asking him, "Why are you cutting the military?" You know, why? Certainly there are. Every department has some place where you can cut a little bit of money, but why are you spending 4 times the amount of money that it costs to run an oil fuel? We're going to spend it instead on algae fuel. Have you heard that one?
Oh yes, at $85 a gallon.
Yeah, and yet we're going to turn around and tell our everyday soldier who's out there putting his life on the line, coming back maimed half of the time, coming back to their family after a long deployment, and we're going to tell them that they have to go out on. We're going to cut your medical. We're going to cut everything that we promised you. We're going to cut.
Yeah, and I will add to the listeners and the watchers of the program that, Karen, you come from a military background. Your husband is prior military. Your sons and I think your daughter, right, are also military as well. I look at it from a double Blue Star dad standpoint. I never served. We want to make that clear. But my sons did in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I look at, they were in harm's way. I mean, both sons lost friends in combat. And I look at what they're doing today, at these folks, and we see we're nailing the progressives today really hard. And Jeanne Shaheen is certainly that. But you see their outright hatred for the military because they see that as a traditional American value, a strong military, one that, frankly, I don't care whether other countries love us. It'd be nice if they respected us, but I'd rather have them fear us, even though we've been the gentlest superpower ever in the world's history, just to leave us the heck alone. And I see nothing but bad things coming from this. But you don't pick on the individual soldier, Marine, Airman, Coast Guard, you name the branch, there it is. You don't do that because a lot of these guys and gals are poor at the lower ranks.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about
expansion. Even if the federal government keeps its promise to New Hampshire to pay for most of it, it'll still cost New Hampshire taxpayers tens of millions of dollars more to provide inferior care and coverage to people who, for the most part, would never have needed it if Democrats hadn't reformed health care in the first place. That's right, that real expensive reform that doesn't care if it's only affordable if you act like you don't need insurance. Well, its #1 claim to fame at this point is how many more people it forced onto Medicaid. And that's only because Obamacare kicks tens of millions of people off the plan they liked and were told they could keep but couldn't. So Medicaid expansion was always part of Obamacare for a reason. Democrats knew all along that the Affordable Care Act was unaffordable and they'd need to make Medicaid bigger and more expensive. So when people got their plan kicked to the health care curb, they could still sign up for something, even if it was something as crappy as Medicaid. This is Steve McDonald for GrokTALK, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
GrokTALK.
I read the other day that there's some really good paying jobs in North Dakota that because of the shale oil and all of that, the average wage is $45 an hour.
And they're paying $15 to $20 an hour for the average slub behind the McDonald's counter because they can't get them for less.
Right, in North Dakota. And that's what you do. We talked about it earlier. You want to give everybody health care, create an environment where there's so many damn jobs that people are fighting. And the wages go up all by their lonesome. It happened in the late 80s, early 90s around here, mid-90s. There was more than labor available.
Well,
Now-
and which goes back to the fact that we just have to get government off the backs of our businesses and create that environment so they can have a predictable, even playing field to deal with, and quit telling them how to all of the minutia that they have to abide by.
Yeah. Now, if you were to get to the Senate, ticking
If
off
when
of,
I get to the Senate,
Yeah,
please.
when? Okay, sorry. Going off of or riffing off of what Steve just said. Now I hear from government that part of the entitlement should be that we provide relocation services to those who don't have jobs to push them into the locations where they do have jobs. So if you're in poverty here in New Hampshire, the federal government would take your family and move them to North Dakota so you could get a job.
You
Is
mean
that-
I'm going to steal your money out of your back pocket so that we can take somebody from New Hampshire and push them someplace else so they can live a better life?
Yes, that's what they want to do. I kid you not. That I have seen that talked about over and over again.
Now, in a real world, the husband, assuming the husband dares to be a breadwinner these days, is going to hitchhike or otherwise scrounge his way to North Dakota and start working. Then he's going to start sending money home. Then he's going to have the family travel.
Yeah, but what do you think of that?
Well, obviously, I don't think it's just been laundered someplace in between, and then I'm going to give it to somebody else. I mean, come on. Every dollar that is a federal dollar that comes down to the people of New Hampshire is a dollar that came out of the pocket of the taxpayers in New Hampshire, to go and provide something at the federal level so that the government jobs can be there, and then we're going to push it back down and come, whether it comes in the form of welfare, a grant, or whatever it is. If it says it's a federal dollar, it's actually reallocation of money out of your back pocket to somebody else.
I'm going to say something that's going to totally infuriate liberals. The percentage efficiency of a gasoline engine is much better than the percentage efficiency of government, because when you put money into government, somewhere between a third and a half comes back to you. A gasoline engine's more efficient than a third by quite some margin.
It's true, too.
That's a good comparison.
We talked about this, I think, well, we talk about it every weekend one way or another because everything revolves around this idea, but it just occurred to me while you were speaking that, a lot of times the arguments that the Democrats make is, well, we have to get our money back. We're paying out more than we're getting back. Well, isn't that what taxes are? I mean, I'm paying out more than I'm getting back. You're paying out more than you're getting back. I thought that was patriotic. I thought that was American. Shouldn't we be giving more than we're getting back? Isn't really that the whole idea? Why do I have to send you down to Washington, D.C. to go down there and rearrange the money to determine how much...
That is absolutely one of the things that needs to be done. But that is so drastic. I mean, this is really radical to want to do this. But what in the world would be common sense about going down and saying, okay, you know what? Our Constitution says we're supposed to pay for infrastructure, we're supposed to pay for national defense, and we're supposed to make sure that those their rules and regulations are there to make sure there's a level playing field for commerce so it can be done fairly across the boards. Okay, so how much of our current budget at the national level is spent on that? About 42%.
Oh, it's
60.
much less. It's much less than
I
that.
mean, I'm sorry, 32%. 68% of our budget right now is spent on things that government is not supposed to be doing. It's up to the states to be doing the health, education, welfare, and pensions of our people. It's not up to the federal government to be doing that. And I'm going to get in trouble for this. I probably will. They'll come out and do everything they can to make sure I don't get elected, because I really do believe that if you're going to cut our military budget, you ought to be first saying, the Congress ought to first be saying, cut my budget first, cut my pay first before you touch my military pay.
Well,
Well, not only-
from the bottom up, they could have less staffers, they could have less opulent buildings, they don't need as many government departments. All of those things are going to save vast amounts of money. Washington, D.C. ought to look like Detroit. It should be a nasty, empty ghost town, because we shouldn't have this level.
We are seeing probably to the point where we may not be able to return it back. Used to be the government was the place of help of last resort. That after your family, after your friends, your neighbors, your town, your state, when all of that failed, then you turn to the federal government. And since the 1930s and 40s, we have seen the push by the progressives to make government the first resort for help. Oh, you have a problem, we got a social worker for that. And you see that over and over again. How do we change that mindset back? As de Tocqueville saw back in the mid-1800s, the strength of America was not in its government, but the strength of its volunteerism among its people.
Exactly, which is what makes New Hampshire so really special in so many ways, because we are highly volunteering in this state. We have the highest rate of volunteerism. But one of the things you have to do is you have to be willing to go down and say, this is not constitutional, that this department exists. And so we need to look at eliminating that department. And one of the first things that you do is you look and see, is that department even doing what it was, the quote mission that it was supposed to be doing way back when it was created. And I will tell you that 100%.
I have to, because you're almost begging my question, which I ask almost every single federal candidate, and a lot of them at the state level as well. Here is the political line. You have, as an example, on the left, the moderate Maine twins, or what used to be the Maine twins, Susan Collins, who is still in the Senate.
Right.
And you have somebody that you've been bringing up, like a Ted Cruz or a Mike Lee or somebody like
Rand
that.
Paul.
Rand Paul, Marco Rubio.
Maybe.
The new Republicans that I would call them.
Tim Scott.
Tim Scott,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Where do
Alan
you fall
West.
along that continuum? And I don't mean to put a label on you, but a lot of people don't spend the amount of time that we political news junkies do. So to give them a point of reference, where would you fall? Would you be congregating with a Susan Collins, or would you be more apt to be with a Mike Lee?
Well, I don't want to be a Shaheen lookalike, which is what Susan Collins and so forth are. But I am definitely one of those wacko birds from Texas.
The wacko birds from Texas.
I'm not.
I take it
actually
you're not in favor
from
of the most hated senator in America, according to that latest poll,
I saw that.
Mr. McCain.
Oh yeah. When you were saying about crossing the aisle and that kind of stuff. About it.
As long as it's going to feather my nest, I will be a maverick.
We have about 3 minutes. Where are you going to be showing up? Anywhere?
You know what? I'm going to be at the 912 group in Rochester on Monday night, speaking to those patriots that live in New Hampshire, and there are a lot of them, and I appeal to them.
That's at the Stone Church.
It's at the Now you said that, I'm going to forget. It is at the church in Rochester, and it is. Can't remember the name of it.
Well, we'll have to put it up.
You will have to put it up. I can't. I just right off the top of my head.
I just led her into a pit.
You did. You did. And if you want more information, you can go to testermanforsenate.com. I'm more than happy to communicate with anybody that wants to communicate. If you want to help me out and make sure that the message gets out to other people, don't hesitate to offer to open your house for a coffee, or even if you have another group that you think that I should be talking to, or if you have a company you want me to come down and find out what it is that you do. I'm all interested. I want to hear what people are thinking about out there. There's a lot of solutions in the state of New Hampshire.
You could write a check.
Oh, that would be really nice.
You could write a check.
You could write a check.
You could use your credit card.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We
Bitcoin?
take credit cards.
You could help the campaign.
Yes.
You know,
It would
there's
be
a lot of
wonderful.
things you could do, and hopefully more and more people will step forward. And it's starting to get a little crowded.
It is getting crowded, but you know. I not do the things the same old way.
Right.
That's for sure.
And we've had Jim Rubens on here. We'll probably have him on again, although the debate tends to get a little
We
interesting.
had Bob Smith on.
We should get Bob Smith on.
We had him on
And
once.
we have.
him on again.
And who knows? We may get Scott Brown. I'm going to say, in the interest of fairness, because we do this kind of thing down in Hollis, we're probably going to have Scott Brown passing through later in March, and I'm going to have the Grok team down there to capture the event.
Indeed.
Well, that should be good. Yeah, and
'cause
maybe
I've
you
got-
can welcome him to the Democrat Party at that time.
Well, believe me, if it happens, I'm going to be asking him a lot of questions.
No, he's got friends who are supporters. So
well,
yeah.
we all.
not this is the Scott Brown you've been looking for. I don't know, or something.
You know, there were a bunch of us Second Amendment supporters and hunters who already decided to meet him in
Nashua, yes, and I was there. It was a lot
yes,
of fun.
You came over and you talked with us. A couple other Republican folks came and talked to us,
Exactly.
but not him, and not the NHGOP head.
Oh well, I had to sneak into their party in order to speak to them so that we could make sure that we weren't forgotten.
Is she really in charge, or is she just the titular head?
I'm not going there.
We go there all the time, but we're not going to go there now. Karen Testerman, thank you so much for coming to
Well,
Concord
thank
and
you.
spending some time with us here at GrokTALK. Coming up next, assuming he's on schedule, is Kevin Avard, and he'll be coming in to talk to us about, I don't know, we'll figure it out when he gets here, but he's running for the New Hampshire State Senate. He's got a lot of things on his table. Karen, thanks again for coming here. Everybody, please visit Karen's website and help her out.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Steve McDonald, Murphy, and Mike Rogers. We are GrokTALK, and we will be right back.
Grok Talk.
Steve McDonald here. You ever notice how Democrats like to create problems so they can then claim to solve them? Take Medicaid expansion, for example. Even if the federal government keeps its promise to New Hampshire to pay for most of it, it'll still cost New Hampshire taxpayers tens of millions of dollars more to provide inferior care and coverage to people who, for the most part, would never have needed it if Democrats hadn't reformed health care in the first place. That's right, that real expensive reform that doesn't care if it's only affordable if you act like you don't need insurance. Well, its number one claim to fame at this point is how many more people it forced onto Medicaid. And that's only because Obamacare kicks tens of millions of people off the plan they liked and were told they could keep but couldn't. So Medicaid expansion was always part of Obamacare for a reason. Democrats knew all along that the Affordable Care Act was unaffordable and they'd need to make Medicaid bigger and more expensive, so when people got their plan kicked to the health care curb, they could still sign up for something, even if it was something as crappy as Medicaid. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Grok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM. Gerard. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Earl Hall from The Earl Hall Show, and you're listening to GrokTALK.
GrokTALk.
Welcome back to GrokTALK. Skip's knocking stuff over. Oh, we are your conservative podcast. Are we the leading conservative podcast, or are we just the conservative podcast?
That's in New Hampshire, at least. Anyway.
Yeah, well, we're here.
And we've got the special added ingredient, squirrels.
We do have the squirrels, yes.
Yeah, certainly in New Hampshire, I believe that we are.
The leading conservative, we are the most well-armed, because I don't know of any other podcasts, honestly, in
The
New Hampshire.
safest.
Had a history of time getting Kevin in here, but if he shows up, he shows up. If he doesn't, we can go without him.
There
just
is no shortage of material.
There is absolutely no shortage of material. So why don't you bring something up?
Okay, so I've actually been looking into Bitcoin, and I'm going to do one of my signature, a little bit too long articles on it. It's about halfway done right now, and it's already longer than average. So I try to leaven it with a little humor, a few pictures, and so on. But so what's up with Bitcoin? It's been a fun few weeks. The libertarians love it. It was highly featured at the Liberty Forum down in Nashua. It has a number of great features if you're a libertarian, such as it all runs on secure cryptography. The transactions are anonymous. It doesn't touch government anywhere unless you turn it to or from some form of fiat cash, and so on and so forth. And it's not naturally inflationary. So that's why they like it. The problem is it seems to behave more like a penny stock than a currency.
That's true, but it's got a lot of people worried, and I noticed that after the Liberty Forum that was held in Nashua a couple of weeks ago was done, person, and I can't remember his first name, his last name was Davi, was leaving Manchester Airport, and the TSA thought they saw bitcoins in his luggage, and they stopped him. I don't know what they're being told. Is no a Bitcoin. There's representations of what a Bitcoin can look like. You can see a Bitcoin on lots of stuff. Call Kevin. Okay. Well, I'm going to shut up, but take it from there because you probably saw the story as well.
I did, and I thought, well, maybe he had some Bitcoin props in his luggage because he absolutely couldn't have Bitcoin because the Bitcoin is entirely a digital representation. The simplest way to think of a Bitcoin is it's a very complex, secure digital certificate, like the one that protects a bank, only much, much more so. Digital currency and its transactions are protected by long chains of digital certificates. Every time there's a transaction, you transfer some coins or some fractions of coins to people. A anonymous digital certificate is generated from your private certificate, which starts the transaction out, and from the recipient's private certificate, which gives you somewhere to send it, and from the long audit trail of the history of how you got to have it in the first place, which is called the blockchain. And so, it never actually exists is the point. It's basically can be thought of as a digital certificate, and how many you own, what they look like, nobody actually knows. The representation of bitcoins you see in the press are simply an artist's impression used to visualize it, which has been used for publicity purposes. And now we have Kevin. So
we do. I had to go. I can't look at my Facebook and my email at the same time as I'm running my soundboard. So I just noticed that Kevin had said he's going to have to call, and Kevin's on the line. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm well. How you doing, Steve?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Sorry I didn't get to you sooner. I didn't see the email. I should have been looking at Facebook. In the House and for a state Senate in New Hampshire. So, welcome to the show.
Well, let me make one small correction. I'm a former state representative.
Former state representative.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm well, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it up to Concord. I had lacrosse this morning, so Oh, it's just running around. We have lacrosse practice at 8 o'clock, and I figured we'd have plenty of time, so.
That didn't work out.
No, it never seems to, So, anyway, how you guys doing?
Good. We're having a pretty rowdy show, so welcome to our rowdy show, eh? What's on your mind, sir? What do you want to focus on today?
Well, this whole Medicare expansion thing has just left me with a big knot in my gut. I got to tell you, it just floored me that it went the way it did. And one of the final thoughts that everybody said was, when the federal government doesn't fund this at 100%, are we going to have the courage to, to make the program sunset or get rid of it? I mean, if we don't have the courage to do it now, anyway, I think anybody who plans on running, I can't understand how any Republicans voted for this. It just floors me.
Well, you're running for the Senate, and so if you get in, you will probably be very near to a position where you might have to deal with something like this. Now, I proposed a couple things about opening up the marketplace, which would bring in more business and create revenue, so that we could create a situation where people would get all
same thing. We're expanding, the welfare base, if anything. And let me just say another thing. It troubles me that Obamacare, passed through all kinds of deceit. We got to vote for it before we can see what's in it. And there were promises that you're going to be able to keep your doctor, you're going to be able to keep your insurance, you're going to have a reduction in your premiums of $2,500 or more. Not only are those falsehoods, now you can't even keep your hospital. There are 10 hospitals that are just going to be completely excluded from this program. So you have the foundation of deceit, and then you're going to augment it. You're going to expand that program for whatever reason. I'm not sure why leadership did this, but it just seems like you're building on a house of cards that's going to fall at a drop of a notice. It's bizarre. Why would you build on something that is going to be a train wreck?
Well, Kevin, this is Skip, and I've asked myself that multiple times. What is the quid pro quo here?
Right.
Who's scratching their back to do this? It wasn't gambling, because gambling got killed off yet again. I can't see anything else other than to take this off the table as a political issue for the midterms coming up in November. But that's what they thought. I have to believe, but it became very clear, and I told them this is going to happen. You've just appeased them. They're just going to haul out a different political club to wail on you with. And Cal Shea Porter, later on that afternoon, started it out in the Washington Post, which I put up on Granite Crock. I mean, basically, they cut the knees out for every single Republican who publicly declared we're against Obamacare, and now they've handed the Democrats a great political issue to run against. Well, look at those people. They care about the poor. How come you hate the poor?
Yeah, and I just want to counter with that, and the fact that it's going to create more poverty. What company is going to want to look at New Hampshire now that we're going to have this looming? We're going to create more deficits because of this. But I just think that one of the things that we can do to turn it around is that people that are running, whether it's state reps or in the federal government, does at 100%. Charlie Eilinghouse said that out of 49 states, the federal government only pays 90%. What made New Hampshire think that they were going to get 100%? They already know it's not going to work. Why would they do that? And leadership really, can I just say it, pissed off a lot of their own.
Well, I'll have to agree with you. There's a lot of us who literally had screaming matches with Jeb Bradley, with Nancy Stiles, with Chuck Morse, and a bunch of the others that voted for this thing. And I will tell you, I'm not sure whether they were trying to go after the independent vote here in New Hampshire, but what they have done, and you saw it with all of the Republican committees all over the state that were putting up resolution after resolution, unanimous, saying we are against this. I will tell you from the grassroots standpoint, I'm going to start, and we've already seen people say this. Jerry DeLemus of the Rochester 912 group has already said it. I'm now going to say it as the owner of Granite Grok, that if there is an establishment Republican that has won in their primary, I will tell my followers, leave that checkbox undone. You don't have to vote for the Democrat to send a message to the establishment Republican leadership, the elite who believe they know better than us. But I think it's time to no longer settle for the least evil. And in every single race that I look at on the ballot, if I see an establishment Republican that I know that I can't trust, I am not going to vote for them, period.
Yeah, and there's a huge buzz. I mean, whether you're in the House or in the, or you're just an observer and you're commenting on Facebook, the people that I'm listening to and I see and I respect. Some of the faith that stalwart, the pillars, that I know, they just, the comment is, well, they just did it to save their own backs, and they left us out, and they gave the Democrats, the softball. But I think we can turn the softball around, because what it's going to call for, it's a clarion call for people who have some backbone that are going to say, you know what, I will make a pledge that when this program fails, that we do shut it down, and I'll make that pledge, and they can say, well, you're going to have all these people out on the street because of your heartlessness, but you know what, Grandma still has to pay the bills too with her income, that limited income, and taxes are going to go up. Somebody's going to have to pay for this. Oh, I got an idea. Let's just raise the gas tax 22 cents. Whose freaking idea is this? I guess I'm getting a little animated, but they're going to come up with all other kinds of schemes to raise taxes. Are we going to have an income tax because of this? We know we're going to be saddled with this. Let me ask the public who's listening to this: where have you seen the federal government fund anything at 100% for any long period of time? Then ask yourself this question: our federal government has $17 trillion in debt. And it's just mounting. It's just, when are they going to pay the bill? It's just going to continue to rack up more debt. Somebody's got to stop and say, hey, look, I can't leave this debt to my kids anymore. I can't leave this debt to my grandkids or my great-grandkids at this rate. The whole face of the Granite State is just changing. We have to stop it. We have to have some people that you can't, up there and run for office. People have got to run for office. They've got to get in there, and they've got to put a line in the sand and say, look, this is it. I can't do this anymore. We've got to fight.
We're going to have to put up candidates that, like they do in New York, run on two parties. They run on the Republican Party in the primary, and they run in some sort of conservative party or in the Libertarian Party, because what we need is conservatives that don't quit when the primary's over, that chase the bastard all the way to the finish line. Sorry.
Listen, I've been talking to a lot of people about that too. We're angry, and I'm hoping they're listening, because the giant isn't asleep. It's just angry now, and I believe that they're going to really pay for this.
Do you think there's enough movement that people are going to challenge these senators who voted the wrong way? Is there going to be some kind of coalition of real Republicans who are going to come together with a strategy, not just to say I'm going to stand up to this and allow it to sunset when the government basically breaks the deal, that has a plan? Because the Democrats are just going to come and say, you're heartless bastards, you're going to let this fall off the face of the earth, and all these people are going to be left hanging. We talked just briefly about it a second ago. Is something going on? Is there a movement afoot?
At this time, I don't know of a whole lot of leadership that is pulling everybody together to make this. I do know that there are a lot of people that are really buzzing about it. And we are kind of anemic with leadership. They've got Democrats are organized.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of money because that's what Ray Buckley does. He brings in a lot of money. I will tell you that there is a movement afoot to go after each and every single state senator that went after this, and there's over $1 million that has already been pledged to replace these folks, to primary them out of existence. And I'm quite sure that you'll see the RLCNH speaking out and doing the grunt work for this. Certainly we are going to be doing what we do in the blogosphere, and as we dominate the political discourse here in New Hampshire on the right, we will be pushing as fast and as hard as we can, because I'm telling you, a lot of people have been emailing me saying we're not voting for these for Republicans at all. They're going away, and that's not good.
No, it's not good. And you know, there are some really good Republicans. You know, I can name a few. You know, Laura Jones, J.R. Hull, Speg Bowers, John Burt, Andy Sanborn. Come on, the guy did a great job getting up there and talking. You know, and at this, we have some strong ones. They just need some support. And I don't see why every Democrat can't be challenged. You know, every one of them, and every rhino needs to be like you said, primary. Just put your name on the ballot. It costs a couple of bucks. You know, get out there. You'd be surprised how angry people are this time around.
Kevin, we're going to take a quick 60-second break. We'll be right back.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now to talk NHT.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK.
Okay, so I had a couple of quick points. First of all, Jennifer has been touting her Grassroots Givers program since she took office. And frankly, the way the Republican Party at the state and national level has treated its grassroots is those grassroots are looking a lot more like the California hills in August, i.e. dry, brown, and they ain't given much. And I'm going to say one more thing. We're not going to let these bastards get away with anything. We're going to do to them what Lisa Murkowski did to a perfectly viable conservative candidate who won a primary. When they win a primary, we're not going to let them go. We're going to do right in. We're going to chase them to the finish line. We're going to take them out.
Yeah, I think that you know we've got to send a message, and you know surrender is not an option at this point. So you know. And just looking at the calendar, I mean, there's all kinds of things. It's like there's a barrage of things that's going on. So we need some people. We need to retake back the House and definitely get a majority in the Senate that will stand on principle.
Kevin, speaking of some of those other things, what else is on your radar? What else? I mean, obviously the gas tax increase is something that we've been talking about. But what do you have? I mean, you're running for state Senate. What's at the top of your agenda other than this debacle?
Corruption in New Hampshire, and we all know it exists. We all know it's out there, and we all know that there's an incestual relationship between all types of the bureaucracies. We have to take a look at it. People are getting hurt in the state of New Hampshire, whether by the family courts or the Attorney General's office, or the bureaucracies are just steamrolling over people, and then they wait and they just beat them down. Let me talk a little bit about family court. You know, as a president of the Center for Redress, you know, we kept the banner going when they killed the committee in the House. In the House, there are about 28 petitions that were founded, and the findings that we discovered dealt with all agencies, basically starting with the Attorney General's office. We had Richard Head come into our committee, and he basically made a confession that, oh my gosh, we misinterpreted the law. Well, his misinterpretation of the law cost Mr. Jeff Frost $185,000. They ransacked his house, his attorney's office, and they threatened him with years of jail time and of course, $500,000 worth of fines. He said, I didn't do anything wrong. Well, he appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court, and he won. That cost him $185,000 to defend himself from the Attorney General's office, who misinterpreted the law. What does the average person do if they don't have $185,000 to defend themselves?
Question for you.
I believe because it was the state government that did it. We found it, and we said that, in our committee, we wanted at least an investigation. It was founded. It passed. It's in the House calendar. What did the Democrats do? They shut it down. I mean, you want to talk about just, these people are not for the little guy. They exploit the little guy. Right now, Jeff Frost has actually got a lawsuit going out, and I believe he's using Chuck Douglas. I'm pretty sure. But, the House should act on this. One of the reasons I'm running for Senate, I want to bring those petitions over to the Senate. I don't see anybody in the Senate working on this. I don't see anybody taking on the issues of the average Joe, the average mom and pop who's been abused by the bureaucrats.
I mean, this is a typical thing that we talk about on Granite Grok itself as well as during, our GrokTALK podcast. What is the proper role of government? What is the relationship between the government and the citizenry? And what you're telling us that as soon as the Democrats came into power, they said government should be over the people from a figurative, if not literal, standpoint. Whereas before, you were trying to make government more to be the public servant, which is what the founders originally intended. But we see the progressives trying to go back to the European model where every subject has a government over them. And, how hard of a struggle is it to keep that from getting more and more entrenched?
I think we have to always be diligent about our liberties. The founders put in the Constitution Article 31, Article 32, Article 38 for the protection of the people. And their protection was the House and the Senate, and they need to come up with remedy for the problems that they've suffered. We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing that it gets delegated into the bureaucracies, and then the rules of either the courts or of the agencies seem to supplant the actual laws that are there to protect the people. So we have to keep addressing it, and we have to fight and allow and make sure that the people can be heard. Listen, when I heard that the redress committee was being created, I swear before Paul Edmondson even got it out of his mouth, I was actually in Pam Tucker's office, and I wanted to be part of that because I thought, my God, this is what a great opportunity. And then of course we got slammed. We say, well, this is a kangaroo court, or it's toothless, and nobody, now you got your findings, now what? Look, you got to have the will. You got to have the will to stand up and say, look, this is unpopular. This is a bad thing. We had two good fathers that had their children taken away from them. Well, there was a guardian ad litem that charged him about $40,000 and gave the judge a sealed envelope. Gave that sealed envelope to the judge. And the judge says, based upon what's in this envelope, your daughter's being taken away. You've committed no crime, but your daughter's being taken away. Whether it's David Johnson's or David Vandenberg, they said, well, I want to see what's in that document. The judge says, no. So we're going to take your child away, and you're not going to be able to know why. Is that right? Isn't there a law against that? Don't you have a right to face your accuser? And yet it goes on and on. It doesn't happen to just men. It happens to women in New Hampshire. DCYF, the guardian ad litems, the Attorney General's office, all these agencies are not accountable to anybody. Or ECC, and you find out that, they're friends with the judge. Or they're friends with your lawyer. and it just goes on, and you're finding case after case after case where people are being abused, their finances are being sucked away from them, and I don't see anybody fighting for them. And that's one of the reasons where I plan on bringing every one of those petitions that were founded that are still in the House calendar and have not been acted upon. I'm going to bring them to the Senate, and I'm going to get co-sponsors, and I'm going to rail, and I'm going to make sure that the people know there's one son of a gun in that Senate that's going to fight for them.
Kevin, how do I have to cut everybody off because we got about a minute left, and I wanted people to know about your campaign, where they can get a hold of you, donate, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, email me at avardforsenate12@gmail.com. That's avardforsenate12@gmail.com.
Those are all AVARADFORSENATE.
Yeah, Avard, AVARDFOR.
Okay.
Senate12@gmail.com, or like me on Facebook, and ask me any tough questions, ask anything you want, and I'll have an honest, hardcore conversation with you. Not politically correct. I can't stand it. It's killing us. It's just, I'm not. And as long as you don't hurl, insults, let's just have an honest discussion.
And you're going to be running against Betty Lasky, is that correct?
No, Peggy Gilmore.
Peggy Gilmore, okay. That was a loud Yahoo from there, Peggy Gilmore. All right, excellent. Give me a mic. Mike, go.
Are you going to... said that. Peggy...
All right. Thanks, Kevin, for being on the show. Great to have you here. We'll hope to get you on again. Good luck.
Super. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
All right, sure thing. All right, my name's Steve McDonald. I'm here with Skip Murphy and Mike Rogers. We're done for the day. We'd like to thank all our guests and hope you tune in next week for another 2 hours.
GrokTV.